welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to learn how to make a hooded baby wrap blanket. This was the very first one that I've ever made and it turned out really cute. It's super comfy and cozy, and as a beginner crocheter, I'm pretty proud of it. So let's get started.
What we're going to need for this project is some chunky yarn, buttons, a yarn needle, scissors, and a 6.0 crochet hook. We're going to start out by making our slip knot, then make 80 single crochet chains. The reason I'm making 80 is because that is the length that I want the blanket to be. If you want it shorter, make less. If you want it longer, make more. But we are making these nice and loose because it is a thicker yarn, so the tighter you make it, the harder it is to work with. So I'm making them nice and loose, not Okay, so we've made it to the end. I've made 80, so now for row 1, okay, so I've made it to the end. I've made 80, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this first V here and go into the second. We're going to create a second or a double half crochet. So I'm going to go over, skip the first V, go into the second, over, pull through, and extend, because I want all 3 of these to be equal lengths. Then we're going to go over and all the way through. And I'm not pulling too tight because, again, this is a thicker yarn. I don't want it to be too tight because it'll be hard to work with. So one more time, I go over, I go through, over, pull through 1, extend, over, all the way through. And I'm going to continue that all the way to the very end. I should end with 1 less than I started with. So I started with 80, so I should end with 79. Over, through, over, pull, extend, over, and through. And 79. Okay, so we just finished working along this side. Now we're going to continue working on the opposite side here. We're going to keep doing our half double crochet, so over, and then we're going to go into the very first loop right here, the first stitch, over again, through 1, pull, over, through all. And you can see that this is starting to make a rounded shape. This is going to be our hooded end. So we're just going to keep doing that, over, under, over, through, pull, over, all the way through. And we're going to keep them nice and loose, over, under, over, through, pull, over, all the way through. And we're going to continue on down for another 79, or 1 less than what you started with. So we've made it to the very end of our flat end of our blanket. So we're going to do 2 single crochets, 1, 2. We're going to flip and turn our work. We're going to go back into the very first chain of our blanket here. So right here. We're going to continue our half double crochet all the way down, go around the hooded end of our blanket, and all the way back down to the opposite side of where we started. So we've made our way to the flat end of our blanket. So we're just going to repeat what we did before by making 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. We're going to flip our work, and we are just going to repeat that single half crochet for the next X amount of rows. Now the amount of rows just depends on how wide you want your blanket. So I am going to determine the width that I want, and I will get back with you on how many rows it took me to get there. I ended up doing 24 rows because that seemed like a pretty good width compared to my hand. I got 1, 2, about 3 hands worth. Disclaimer, I did lose track of how many rows I was doing in the middle of my project, but an easy way to figure out how many you have is one of these sections right here is 2 rows. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, and 24. So that seemed like a good width, so that's where I'm going to stop at. That seemed like a pretty good width, so that's where I'm going to end this section of the blanket at. Alright, now we're going to continue by chaining 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and then we're going to do 55 half double crochets all the way down, chain 2, and then do 55 back. This is going to be our first arm fold over. So we're going to go all the way to 55, which should end us somewhere around down here. Let's get started. Okay, we've made it 60 all the way down for our first arm fold, so we're just going to 2 single crochets, flip and turn our work, and do 60 on down. We're going to repeat that until we get X amount of rows. Again, it's just going to be until you get as wide as you want. I want it to be as wide as the blanket so it can fold all the way over. So I'm looking at 24 rows. I'll meet you back when those 24 are done. Okay, so I'm still working on the arm, but I just got done using my first thing of yarn, and I'm going to do what's called the invisible knot. I saw this done and I thought it was really neat and a really cool way to do this. So this is my ending yarn. I'm going to lay it right here. It's going to go this way. Then I'm going to take my new yarn and it's going to go the opposite way. So I'm going to line these up close together. I'm going to take this piece of yarn with the tail. I'm going to go over my 2 fingers, and then the tail is going to come out right here. It's going to go over the yarn, under both yarns, and out by my fingernails. Then I'm just going to pull it tight into a knot. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So it's going to go over my 2 fingers. The tail is going to come over the yarn, under the yarn, out by my fingernails, and then I'm going to pull tight. Then what I'm going to do, well, we can see that we have 2 knots here, 1 and 2. Then I'm going to just pull the yarn tight. So that's a really strong, tight knot. Then I'm going to take my scissors, and we can cut the yarn really close. And it's not going anywhere. We can see it's still not going anywhere. Then we just continue on, crochet it into the arm, and there it is. It's in there, it's right there. You can barely see it, and there's not going to be any little flyaways or anything to weave in. And I thought that was really cool. Okay, so I finished my first arm. I did 24 rows, and now we're at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to take my scissors, I'm going to cut enough thread just so that I have enough left over to weave it in, and I'm just going to pull it through, make it nice and tight right there so it won't come apart. Now you have a couple options here. You can make another arm the same width as the first arm, so it goes across the whole blanket, or you can do what I'm about to do and just make 6 rows for this second arm, and I will show you exactly why I'm doing that as soon as it's done. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that second arm on the side that does not have an arm, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a slip knot. There we go. Then I'm going to go in to this stitch right here. I'm going to go right through. I'm just going to create 1 stitch. Pull it nice and tight, and then create 2 single crochets, and then do our half double stitch all the way down. 60 spaces like we did the first time on our first arm. All the way through. And when I get to 60, I will do 2 more single crochets, and turn my work around just like we did with the first arm. So I will meet you down there when we make 60 half double crochets. So I ended up making 6 rows on my second arm, and the reason I did this is so that when I do fold it in half here, it's quite large, and I fold it in, and then I fold this all the way over. It's not so thick and bunchy. It's still thick and warm, but it's not so too thick, too padded, too much on the baby. It's not too heavy. It's still nice and light, but really warm on the inside. If I would have done it all the way across, I think it would have just been too heavy and too much. Also, I have this really cool design I'm gonna do with the buttons, but first I have to cut this enough that I have enough left over to weave it in, pull it through, tighten, and I'm done with that. So let's get the buttons out. Okay, so now we're going to put the buttons on. I'm going to go into the second row here. So it's 4 rows in, so this is 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to go down this middle right here. I'm going to go 8 down, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 here, right here. But I'm going to put the buttons on the inside facing this way. And you may think that's kind of funny. Why would you want the buttons facing inside? I'll show you as soon as I'm done. So we're right here on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the needle and poke through the thread, through that 8th stitch. I'm going to bring my yarn almost all the way through, not quite. I still want to have a tail so that I can tie it off. Then I'm going to poke it through one of these holes. And I'm going to make an X pattern because I think that's cute. And then I'm going to go right back through that same stitch. And I'm going through the yarn, not around it. I pull it. We're on the back again. I'm going to go back through this stitch, pulling it through, tightening it, going up through the hole, making my X pattern, going back through this stitch, pulling extra tight. I'm going to go ahead and make this. I'm going to tie it 1 knot, pull really tight, 2 knots, pull really tight, and I like to even go 3 knots. And sometimes I'll even take a lighter after I'm done and I'll melt it Not enough to be hard, but just enough to make sure that it's not going to fray or come apart, but I think 3 knots is good enough. Then I'm going to go down 22 stitches. So that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, right here. I'm going to put my needle right there so I can get some more thread. I chose black just because I thought it was cute. Now the hardest part, threading your needle. I like to wet the end and twist it really tight. Poke it through, hopefully, and just pull. There we go. Got it. So recount 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Oop, I lost count. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. We're here. I'm going to grab my button. I'm going to go through. Pulling almost all the way through. Going through one hole. And then making that X pattern, so the opposite, the diagonal hole. Back through that stitch. Where did we? Right here, down this line. Whoop. Pulled a little too tight, so I'm going to pull back on that. Just like that. Then go back through the stitch. Up and through the hole. And then the diagonal hole. And then back through that stitch. Pulling nice and tight, I can take that off and do a triple tie just to make sure it's triple secure. There's 1, 2, 3. All right, now to show you why I put the buttons on the inside. Now to see why I put them on the inside, I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to put my buttons through the holes here. And what's great about this is that you don't need a specific buttonhole. You can just put them in any hole at all, which is going to be great for when the baby grows because you can adjust this, and I'll show you how to do that as well. And I'm going to button this one just through and through, and now your buttons are on the outside and they're super cute so you can see them. Now to show you how to adjust it, all I'm going to do is unbutton them, which makes it easy. Open it up, unbutton these, open them up. Now watch. You bring it down to whatever height that you want it to be at. Let's say the baby grows this much. So you just button it, button it, button the side, button the side, turn it in, and turn it in, and voila. Baby's nice and secure, not going anywhere. Out the bottom here, not going anywhere. And these sides are nice and secure, not opening up. You pull as hard as you want, they're not going anywhere.